The auditorium of Riverside Elementary buzzed with the excited chatter of parents clutching programs and adjusting camera phones. James Mitchell sat in the third row, his hands resting on his knees, the picture of composure that served him well through 15 years of building a tech empire. At 38, he'd achieved everything he'd ever wanted professionally, but the personal cost had been devastating. His wife, Sarah, had died 3 years ago from cancer, leaving him alone with a grief so profound he thought he'd never smile again. Then came Lily. He'd adopted her 2 years ago from St. Catherine's Home for Children when she was just 3 years old. The moment James had seen those bright, intelligent eyes staring up at him from the orphanage playroom, something in his frozen heart had cracked open. This was his daughter, the one he and Sarah had planned for but never got to have together. Lily had brought light back into his life. Their modern downtown loft had become cluttered with dolls and picture books. His carefully planned schedules now revolved around kindergarten drop-offs and playground visits. And James wouldn't have changed a single thing. Sarah would have loved her, he thought. She would have loved her so much. Across town, in a modest duplex where the heating sometimes worked and sometimes didn't, Jasmine Williams was frantically searching for matching shoes for her twin daughters. Mia, we're going to be late, she called, her voice cracking with the exhaustion of a woman who'd worked a double shift at the diner before rushing home to get her girls ready for the school concert. At 28 years old, Jasmine looked both younger and older than her years. Younger in her face, which still held the softness of early motherhood. Older in her eyes, which had seen too much struggle, too much loss, too much abandonment for one person to carry alone. Her husband, Marcus, had left when the twins were just 6 months old. Said he couldn't handle the responsibility, the crying, the bills. He'd walked out one Tuesday morning and never came back. No child support, no calls, nothing but a divorce decree and silence. The twins tumbled down the narrow hallway, identical in every way except for the small beauty mark above Maya's left eyebrow. They were 5 years old now, bright and beautiful, and full of life despite everything they'd been through. Despite the cramped apartment, the second-hand clothes, the nights when dinner was cereal because that's all they had. Mama, we're ready, Mia announced, spinning in her carefully ironed white shirt and black pants, the required uniform for the choir concert. Jasmine's heart clenched. She'd ironed those clothes at midnight after her shift, her fingers aching, her eyes burning with fatigue. But seeing her daughter's excited faces made every sacrifice worth it. You both look beautiful, she whispered, pulling them close for a quick hug. Now let's go show everyone what Williams girls are made of. They piled into her aging Honda Civic, the check engine light glowing reproachfully on the dashboard. Jasmine said a quick prayer that the car would make it through one more night. Just one more night. At Riverside Elementary, the choir was assembling backstage. Lily Mitchell stood in line, her heart hammering with nervous excitement. She loved singing, loved the way her voice could soar and dip and carry emotions she didn't quite have words for yet. Mrs. Peterson, the choir director, had given her a small solo part in Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and she was determined not to mess it up. That's when she saw them, 2 girls who looked exactly like her reflection. Same dark curly hair pulled back from their faces. Same deep brown eyes and heart-shaped face. Same small gap between their front teeth that made their smiles distinctive. Lily froze, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing. Maya and Mia Williams stared back at her with identical expressions of shock. You look like us, Maya whispered. You look like me, Lily responded, her voice barely audible. Mrs. Peterson clapped her hands. Places, everyone. We're about to start. The 3 girls were swept into position, but they couldn't stop stealing glances at each other. Lily's mind was racing. She knew she was adopted. Her daddy had always been honest about that, reading her beautiful books about adoption and telling her how chosen and special she was, how Mommy Sarah had picked out her name before she went to heaven. But she'd never considered that somewhere out there she might have siblings who looked just like her. The curtain rose. The lights blinded them momentarily, and then the music began. From his seat in the audience, James Mitchell watched his daughter open her mouth to sing, and then his breath caught in his throat, his hands gripping the armrests. 2 other girls, standing on either side of Lily, who were identical to his daughter. Not just similar, identical. Several rows behind him, Jasmine Williams had raised her phone to record her daughter's performance. Through the small screen, she watched Maya and Mia, their faces glowing under the stage lights. And then the camera panned slightly to the left, and Jasmine's world tilted on its axis. There was another girl, a third girl who looked exactly like her daughters. The phone slipped from her trembling fingers, clattering to the floor. The woman next to her gave her an annoyed look, but Jasmine barely noticed. Her mind had transported back 5 years, to the worst night of her life. The premature labor at just 30 weeks. The chaos in the emergency room. The fear drowning her as she heard one baby cry, then another, then a third. Triplets. She'd been having triplets, not twins like the ultrasounds had shown. And then the complications, the hemorrhaging, the emergency surgery. Waking up hours later to find 2 tiny babies in the NICU, fighting for their lives, and being told that her third daughter had been stillborn, too small, too weak to survive. They'd told her the baby had been taken away. There would be a small memorial service. Jasmine had been too weak, too devastated, too lost in grief and pain medication to ask questions. Marcus had already been pulling away, overwhelmed by 2 sick preemies. By the time she recovered enough to think clearly, the paperwork had been signed, the death certificate filed, and her husband had packed his bags. But now, looking at that stage, Jasmine knew with every fiber of her being that her third daughter hadn't died. Her third daughter was alive. The concert continued, but neither James Mitchell nor Jasmine Williams heard another note. Their worlds had narrowed to those 3 identical faces on stage, singing in perfect harmony, their voices blending as if they'd been practicing together their entire lives. When Somewhere Over the Rainbow began, all 3 girls stepped forward for different verses. Lily's voice rang out first, clear and trained from private lessons. Then Maya's, strong and soulful, carrying emotion that seemed too deep for a 5-year-old. Finally Mia's, sweet and pure, wrapping around a melody like a prayer. In the audience, parents reached for tissues. But James and Jasmine sat frozen, barely breathing, as the truth crashed over them in waves. The moment the curtain fell, James was on his feet. His mind, trained to solve complex business problems, was already working through the impossible mathematics of what he'd just witnessed. Identical triplets weren't a coincidence. They were biology. They were family. Jasmine moved through the crowd like a woman in a dream. Her hands were shaking so badly she had to clasp them together. Maya and Mia appeared from backstage, their faces flushed with excitement. "Mama, did you see? Did you see us sing?" Mia grabbed her hand, pulling her forward. "I saw, baby. You were perfect. Both of you." Jasmine's voice was mechanical. Her eyes scanned the crowd, searching for that third face. And then she saw her. Lily Mitchell stood beside a tall man who was obviously her father. He was handsome in that effortless way of successful men, wearing casual but expensive clothes. His dark hair was touched with gray at the temples, and his blue eyes were fixed on Maya and Mia with an expression of wonder and growing realization. The 2 families moved toward each other as if pulled by invisible strings. Other parents parted around them, sensing the weight of the moment even if they didn't understand it. "Daddy," Maya said slowly, her small hand tugging on James's sleeve, "why does that girl look exactly like us?" Lily looked up at her father. "Daddy, why do those girls look like me?" James opened his mouth, but no words came. He'd navigated hostile board meetings and billion-dollar negotiations, but he had no idea how to handle this moment. He looked at the woman standing before him. Young, tired, beautiful in a worn-down way that spoke of struggle, and saw the same shock and recognition in her eyes. "Perhaps we should talk," he said finally, his voice gentle. "Somewhere private?" Jasmine could only nod. Up close, the resemblance was even more striking. This girl, Lily, wasn't just similar to her daughters. She was identical. The same small birthmark on her right wrist that Maya had. The same slight curl to her earlobes that Mia had. Details that couldn't be faked or coincidental. Mrs. Peterson appeared, sensing the tension. "Is everything all right? Girls, you were wonderful tonight." "We need to use a classroom," James said, his voice barely steady. "Please, it's important." Something in his tone made the choir director nod quickly. "The music room is open. I'll make sure you're not disturbed." The two families filed into the room in silence. The three girls sat together on the piano bench, stealing glances at each other and then at the adults. Maya reached out and took Lily's hand. Mia took the other. The gesture was so natural, so instinctive, that James felt his throat tighten with emotion. "My name is Jasmine Williams," Jasmine said finally, her voice shaking. "These are my daughters, Maya and Mia. They're 5 years old. They were born at Mercy General Hospital on March 15th, 10 weeks premature." James's breath caught. "March 15th, he whispered. "Lily's birthday is March 15th. How old is Lily?" Jasmine asked, though she already knew the answer. "She just turned 5 last month. We adopted her when she was 3 from St. Catherine's Home for Children. Her record said she'd been surrendered by a young mother who couldn't care for her." Jasmine's laugh was bitter and broken. "I was 23 when I had them, and I never surrendered any baby." Her voice grew stronger, fueled by anger and grief. "I had triplets that night. That's what the doctors told me when I woke up from emergency surgery. But then they said one of them, the smallest one, had died." The room went silent, except for the humming of fluorescent lights overhead. "They told me she was stillborn," Jasmine continued, tears streaming down her face now. "They said she was too small. Her lungs weren't developed enough. They took her away. I never even got to hold her. I was so sick, bleeding out, and my husband," her voice broke. "My ex-husband was already talking about leaving. I believed them. God help me, I believed them." James felt ice water flood his veins. St. Catherine's adoption records showed her birth date, but said she was an abandoned infant found at a hospital. "Someone lied," Jasmine said flatly. "Someone at that hospital lied and told me my baby died, and then they gave that baby up for illegal adoption." Lily's small voice cut through the adult conversation. "So Maya and me are my sisters?" 3 pairs of identical brown eyes locked together. Maya squeezed Lily's hand tighter. "I think so, sweetheart," James whispered, kneeling in front of all 3 girls. He looked at Jasmine, and something passed between them. An understanding born of parenthood, of love, of shared wonder at these 3 miraculous children. "We need to do DNA tests," James said practically, "to be certain, to have legal proof." "I know what I'm looking at," Jasmine said quietly. "I carried these babies. I know my daughters." "I believe you," James agreed, "but we'll need proof for what comes next." "What comes next?" Mia asked, her voice small and worried. Jasmine moved to sit with the girls, placing herself between her known daughters and this newly discovered 3rd child. Lily looked at her with wide eyes, and Jasmine felt her heart crack open. This was her baby. The baby they'd told her was dead. The baby she'd mourned for 5 years. "What comes next?" James said carefully, his business mind already cataloging the legal implications, "is that we figure out the truth together, and we make sure these 3 girls, who are clearly sisters, get to know each other." "But where will Lily live?" Maya asked, the first hint of fear creeping into her voice. "She lives with you." The question hung in the air, heavy with implications that neither adult wanted to face yet. James had raised Lily for 2 years. He loved her with every fiber of his being, the daughter that had saved him from drowning in grief. And Jasmine had given birth to her, had grieved for her, had never stopped loving the baby she thought she'd lost. "Let's take this one step at a time," James said gently, though his mind was already racing ahead to custody battles and legal nightmares. "First, we confirm what we all already know. Then we figure out how this happened. And then—" He paused, looking at Jasmine, at the 3 girls sitting together as if they'd never been apart. "Then we figure out what's best for the girls." Jasmine nodded slowly. Both parents knew that painful decisions lay ahead. But for now, in this moment, they could give the girls something neither family had even known to hope for. Family, complete and whole at last. The DNA results came back 3 days later, though everyone already knew what they would say. Dr. Patricia Yamamoto from the genetics lab looked at the 3 adults crowded into her office, James Mitchell, Jasmine Williams, and James's attorney David Chun, and delivered the news with professional detachment. They're identical triplets. No doubt whatsoever. Same DNA, same genetic markers. Maya, Mia, and Lily share 100% of their genetic material. Jasmine had to sit down. Even though she'd known, hearing it confirmed made her legs weak. James stood behind his chair, his knuckles white as he gripped the leather back. His world had been upended in a single evening, and he was still trying to process the implications. "Thank you, Doctor," David said, already mentally cataloging the next steps. As one of the city's top family law attorneys, he was accustomed to complex cases, but this situation was beyond anything in his experience. They had kept the girls apart since the concert, both families agreeing that they needed answers before disrupting the children's lives further. But Maya, Mia, and Lily had been video chatting constantly with James's and Jasmine's permission, the 5-year-olds navigating this new relationship with a resilience that humbled their parents. Now came the harder part, finding out how this had happened. "I filed a request for Lily's original adoption records," David explained as they sat in James's downtown office later that day. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, but Jasmine barely noticed the view. She felt out of place among the leather furniture and expensive art, but she was grateful for his help. James had insisted on providing legal representation for both of them, and she'd been too overwhelmed to refuse. "And I've hired a private investigator who specializes in adoption fraud cases," David continued. "Adoption fraud," Jasmine repeated bitterly. "Is that what we're calling it? They stole my baby and told me she was dead." "That's exactly what they did," James said quietly, his voice hard with controlled anger. "And someone is going to pay for it." The investigator's name was Marcus Reed, a former police detective with a gentle manner that belied his pit bull tenacity. Over the next 2 weeks, he pulled threads that unraveled conspiracy that made all 3 adults sick. Dr. Harold Brennan had been the attending physician that night at Mercy General. He'd retired 3 years ago and moved to Florida, but Marcus tracked him down. At first, the doctor refused to speak, but when faced with evidence and the threat of criminal charges, he finally broke. "It was Roberts," he said, referring to Dr. Elaine Roberts, the hospital's former NICU director. She had a system. Young mothers, poor mothers, mothers who came in alone and vulnerable. If there were multiples and complications, she'd tell them one didn't make it. Then she'd work with St. Catherine's to place the babies for adoption. The hospital needed money. St. Catherine's got funding per placement. And the adoptive parents. The adoptive parents paid significant fees. David finished, his voice hard. Brennan nodded miserably. "I went along with it twice before I couldn't anymore. I told myself we were giving babies better lives. Homes with stable parents and money and opportunities. But it was wrong. God, it was so wrong." James sat very still as Marcus relayed this information. He'd paid $85,000 in adoption fees and expenses for Lily. Money he thought was going toward legal costs and supporting the orphanage. Money that had meant nothing to him. A rounding error in his quarterly budget. Now he understood. He'd essentially bought a stolen baby. "I didn't know," he said, his voice barely audible. "Of course you didn't know," Jasmine said immediately. Over the past 2 weeks, she'd been getting to know James Mitchell, seeing how much he loved Lily, understanding that he was a victim in this too. "You gave her a beautiful life. You loved her. A life she should have had with you, with her sisters." Their eyes met across the conference table, and Jasmine saw her own pain reflected back at her. This man had lost his wife to cancer, had found hope again in a little girl, and now faced losing that little girl too. Her heart ached for him even as it ached for herself. Marcus continued his report. "Dr. Roberts died last year. Heart attack. But I found 3 other cases following the same pattern. 3 other mothers told their babies died. 3 babies who ended up at St. Catherine's. 3 other families destroyed," Jasmine whispered. "St. Catherine's claims they had no knowledge of wrongdoing," Marcus went on. "Said Dr. Roberts brought them infants registered as abandoned or surrendered with all the proper paperwork. They're cooperating with the investigation now, but back then, he shrugged, it was a well-organized system. David was already thinking ahead. We need to involve the FBI. This crosses state lines if any of those babies were adopted by families from other states. We're looking at human trafficking charges, fraud, conspiracy. We need justice, Jasmine said firmly. For all those families, we'll get it, James promised, and something in his voice made Jasmine believe him. This was a man who built empires. He wouldn't stop until everyone responsible paid for what they'd done. Over the next month, the investigation exploded into a national news story. 3 other families were reunited with children they'd thought were dead. 1 other baby was still missing, the mother's grief renewed by hope and terror. The media camped outside both James's luxury building and Jasmine's duplex. James hired security for both locations, and this time when he offered, Jasmine accepted without argument. Her daughter's safety mattered more than her pride. Through it all, the 3 girls video chatted daily. Maya and Mia taught Lily the hand clap games they'd made up. Lily showed them her playroom full of toys and her collection of princess dresses. They discovered they all loved strawberry ice cream and hated green beans, that they all had the same recurring dream about flying, that they could finish each other's sentences in a way that was both eerie and beautiful. When can we see each other again? Lily asked one night, her face serious on the tablet screen. Maya and Mia looked at their mother. Jasmine looked at the screen, knowing James was watching from his end. Soon, both parents said together. But everyone knew the question that was really being asked. Not when could they see each other, but when would they live together? And whose home would that be? The DNA evidence was irrefutable. The birth records, once properly subpoenaed, showed that baby girl Williams No. 3 had been born alive at 7:47 p.m. on March 15th. Weight 2 pounds, 8 ounces, length 15 inches. Jasmine's signature appeared nowhere on any adoption or surrender papers. There was only Dr. Roberts' notation. Infant deceased, body released to hospital morgue services. Except the baby had never gone to the morgue. She'd gone to the NICU, then to St. Catherine's, then to James Mitchell. Legally, David explained one evening as both families met in his office, Lily's adoption was fraudulent, based on falsified documents and criminal activity. James's jaw tightened. He knew what David was saying. His adoption of Lily had no legal standing. Biologically and legally, Lily is Jasmine's daughter, David continued, his voice gentle. The court will have to void the adoption. But she's been my daughter for 2 years, James said, his voice cracking. I love her. She's my whole world. After Sarah died, Lily saved my life. I know, Jasmine said softly, and she did know. She could see it every time James looked at Lily. The same fierce, protective love she felt for Maya and Mia. But she's my daughter too. She's Maya and Mia's sister. We've missed 5 years of her life. The 2 parents looked at each other across David's desk. Between them sat the weight of impossible choices and broken hearts. What if, James said slowly, we didn't have to choose? The coffee shop was neutral territory, chosen deliberately, not James's world of expensive restaurants with sommeliers and tasting menus. Not Jasmine's world of diners where she still picked up shifts when bills piled too high. Just a middle ground cafe where 2 parents could sit across a small table and try to find a solution that wouldn't destroy anyone's life. I've been doing research, James said, pulling out his tablet. His hands were steady, but Jasmine could see the tension in his shoulders. About custody arrangements, co-parenting, unconventional family structures. Jasmine wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. She'd barely slept in the 6 weeks since the concert. Between the investigation, the media attention, and the constant fear of what came next, she was running on fumes and mother's determination. James, I can't give her up, Jasmine said quietly. I already lost her once. It nearly killed me. The grief, the guilt, thinking somehow I'd failed her. I can't. Her voice broke. I know. James set down his tablet. I can't give her up either. She's my daughter. I've rocked her through nightmares and celebrated her first day of preschool and taught her to swim. I've been her father for 2 years. After Sarah died, Lily gave me a reason to keep living. But I gave birth to her, Jasmine said, then immediately wished she could take it back. I'm sorry. I didn't mean... You're right, though. James ran a hand through his hair. You carried her and nearly died bringing her into this world. And she has 2 sisters who need her. A whole family she's been stolen from. I understand all of that. The silence between them was heavy, but not hostile. Just 2 people drowning in impossible circumstances. What if she lived with both of us? James said finally. Jasmine looked up sharply. What? What if we shared custody? Real custody, not just visitation. What if we raise her together? That's crazy, Jasmine said automatically. But her mind was already turning over the possibility. Is it? Is it crazier than any alternative? James leaned forward. If this goes to court, it will take years. Years of Lily being pulled between 2 families, 2 sets of lawyers, 2 competing claims. Years of Maya and Mia being separated from their sister. Years of all 3 girls suffering while adults fight over legal definitions of parenthood. Jasmine had thought about this. She'd barely thought about anything else. Every scenario ended with someone's heart breaking. I'm a single mother, Jasmine said slowly. I work 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. I can't offer Lily what you can. Private schools and fancy toys and trips to Disneyland. But you can offer her something I never could, James countered. Her biological family, her sisters, her identity and her history. Her history? Jasmine's laugh was bitter. You mean being black and poor and abandoned by her father? That's some prize. James flinched. That's not what I meant. I meant her truth, who she really is, where she really came from. I know what you meant. Jasmine sighed, rubbing her eyes. I'm sorry. I'm just tired and scared. And I don't know how to share my daughter with someone else, especially someone who's... She gestured vaguely at him, at his expensive watch and designer jeans, rich and white. James finished quietly. Yeah. They sat in uncomfortable silence for a moment. I don't know how to do this either, James admitted. I'm a widower who adopted because I was drowning in loneliness. I work 80-hour weeks. I have no idea how to co-parent with someone I barely know. But I know I can't bear to see Lily hurt. And right now, she's hurting. She loves me. She also loves Maya and Mia and is starting to love you. She's 5 years old, and she's being torn apart. The truth of those words hung between them. They'd both seen it in Lily's eyes during the supervised visits that had been arranged. The confusion, the guilt about loving 2 families, the fear of having to choose. What would it even look like? Jasmine asked. Joint custody between people who aren't married or together, who live in completely different worlds. I don't know, James said honestly. Maybe we split time, week on, week off. Or maybe... He paused, clearly nervous about what he was about to say. Maybe we find a way to live closer together. Maybe we become an extended family instead of 2 separate families fighting over 1 child. Jasmine stared at him. You're talking about changing your whole life. I'm talking about doing what's best for Lily. And for Maya and Mia, who deserve to grow up with their sister. James's voice grew stronger. I have resources. I can help. Not because I'm trying to buy anything, but because we're family now. Whether we planned it or not, those girls make us family. I don't want charity, Jasmine said sharply. It's not charity. It's family helping family. James met her eyes. Those girls are sisters, which makes you and me connected, whether it's comfortable or not. Jasmine studied the man across from her. James Mitchell, billionaire widower with his tech empire and his perfect life. A man who had everything she'd ever wanted and could never have. It would be so easy to resent him. But she didn't. She couldn't. Because he loved Lily with the same desperate, fierce love that she felt. And that love was the only thing that mattered. My lease is up in 3 months, Jasmine said slowly. The landlord's raising the rent again. I can't afford it. James's eyes widened slightly. What if you didn't have to? James, just listen, please. James pulled up a real estate listing on his tablet. There's a townhouse for sale 2 blocks from my building. 3 bedrooms, good neighborhood, excellent schools. It needs some updating, but it's solid. I could buy it, you and the girls could live there, and we could figure this out together. I can't let you buy me a house. Not for you. For the girls. For all 3 of them. James's voice was urgent now. Think about it. Maya and Mia could walk to my place. Lily could walk to yours. They could grow up as sisters. Real sisters, not just faces on a video screen. We could share school pickups and emergency babysitting and birthday parties. We could be a family. A weird, unconventional, probably legally complicated family, but a family. Jasmine wanted to say no. Her pride demanded it. But then she thought about Maya's face when she talked about our other sister, about Mia asking when they could have a sleepover with Lily, about the way all 3 girls had sat together at that concert, their voices blending as if they'd never been apart. What would people say? She whispered. I stopped caring what people thought when my wife died and the business world expected me to be back in the office 3 days after her funeral. James said quietly, the only opinions that matter are the girls. What about money? I can't just live rent-free. Then pay what you can afford. We'll draw up a fair rental agreement. And when you're ready, when you've saved enough, we can talk about you buying it. James leaned back. I'm not trying to control you or save you, Jasmine. I'm trying to solve a problem that hurts all of us. Jasmine closed her eyes. Shared custody meant Lily would sometimes call James Dad, with the same love she might one day use for her, would have memories and inside jokes that Jasmine wasn't part of, would grow up with privileges and opportunities that Maya and Mia might not have access to. But it also meant all 3 girls would grow up together, would have each other, would never have to choose between families or feel guilty for loving multiple parents. It's crazy, Jasmine said again. Completely insane, James agreed. People will think we've lost our minds. Probably. Jasmine opened her eyes and looked at James. Really looked at him. Saw past the expensive clothes and the confidence to the grieving widower underneath. A man who was offering to turn his whole life upside down for love of a child. Okay, Jasmine said quietly. Let's try it. James's breath caught. Really? Really? But we do this as equals. I'm not your employee or your charity case. I'm Lily's mother, same as you're her father. Equal partners in this, or it doesn't work. Equal partners. James agreed immediately. I wouldn't want it any other way. They shook hands across the table, and the gesture felt like a promise. 2 parents, choosing to work together instead of tear each other apart. We're going to need a good therapist, Jasmine said. For the girls, and probably for us too. David's already found someone who specializes in complex family dynamics. Of course he has. Jasmine shook her head, smiling despite everything. This is really happening, isn't it? If we're brave enough to let it. They talked for hours after that, planning and dreaming, and facing the practical realities of their decision. How to split time, how to handle holidays, how to navigate schools and doctors, and the million tiny decisions that go into raising children. How to explain this arrangement to everyone from their families, to teachers, to the girls themselves. It wouldn't be easy. There would be jealousy and misunderstandings and moments when the whole thing felt impossible. But as Jasmine finally drove home that night, she felt something she hadn't felt in 5 years. Hope. The townhouse was perfect in a way that only imperfect things can be. It had good bones, but needed work. The kitchen was outdated. The bathrooms needed updating, and the backyard was overgrown. But it had 3 bedrooms, hardwood floors, and it was 2 blocks from James's building. James bought it in April, exactly 2 months after the concert that changed everything. Jasmine signed a rental agreement that David had drawn up. Fair terms that would allow her to pay what she could afford while building toward eventual ownership. I'm paying rent. Jasmine had insisted during negotiations. Market rate, or I walk. Discounted rate to account for the circumstances. David had countered gently. And you maintain the property. Your time and labor count toward equity. They compromised, as they were learning to do. The renovations became a family project. James, who'd never held a paintbrush in his life, learn alongside Jasmine how to prep walls and lay tile. They spent weekends at hardware stores, the three girls racing down aisles while their parents debated paint colors and cabinet styles. "I think my room should be purple," Lily announced one day, haar hat perched on her curly hair. "Purple?" James raised an eyebrow. "Our favorite color," Maya added, as if this explained everything. "All three of you like purple?" Jasmine asked. The triplets nodded in unison. It was one of hundreds of similarities they'd discovered. They all twirled their hair when thinking. They all made the same disgusted face at broccoli. They all sang in their sleep, sometimes. "All right," James said, giving in. "One purple room." Jasmine handed Lily a small roller. "But if we're doing purple, we're doing it right. Small, careful strokes." Watching them work together. James's long frame bent over tiny Lily, both of them concentrating on painting a straight edge. Jasmine felt her remaining reservations ease. The family therapy sessions had helped all of them understand that love wasn't finite, wasn't a competition. Lily having two parents didn't diminish either person's role. If anything, it gave her more support, more love, more family. The first week of the new arrangement was chaos. Lily's clothes were at the wrong house. Maya couldn't find her favorite doll. Mia had a meltdown because she wanted Lily's daddy. And James had to learn that sometimes Lily's daddy was now just James to all three girls. But slowly, routines emerged. Weekdays, the girls stayed primarily with Jasmine. She cut back to one job after James had quietly paid off her car and medical debt from the triplets' birth, a gift he'd framed as settling accounts for what was stolen so she could accept it. Weekends rotated between houses. Holidays were split, though that first Thanksgiving, they'd impulsively decided to cook together, resulting in a chaotic, loud, perfect dinner with three giggling girls and two exhausted adults. James's modern loft slowly transformed. The minimalist decor gave way to children's artwork on the walls. His home office became a homework station 3 days a week. He learned to braid hair from YouTube videos at 6 a.m., his large hands fumbling with tiny elastic bands while Maya patiently explained the technique. Jasmine's townhouse filled with the sound of laughter. The girls had their own rooms, but most mornings all three ended up in one bed, curled around each other like puppies. James would text her photos when he picked them up on his mornings. Found them in a puppy pile again. Can't tell which head belongs to which body. "This is weird, right?" Jasmine said one Saturday evening, sitting on James's balcony while the girls had a movie night inside. "This whole situation, it's objectively insane." "Completely," James agreed, nursing his coffee. "I go from board meetings to braiding hair. My CFO thinks I've lost my mind. My mother thinks I'm crazy for trusting a rich white man with my babies." James flinched slightly. "Does she have a point?" "No," Jasmine said firmly, surprising herself at how much she meant it. "You love Lily. You love all of them. I see it. I do." James stared out at the city lights. "But I also see how hard this is for you, sharing them, especially Lily." Jasmine was quiet for a moment. "It is hard," she admitted. "Sometimes I look at her and I see the baby they told me was dead, and I want to just hold her and never let go, make up for all the lost time. That's not crazy. That's being a mother. But she calls you daddy. And she should. You earned that." Jasmine wiped at her eyes. "I just wish I'd had the chance to earn it too." James reached over and squeezed her hand, the gesture becoming natural between them. "You're earning it now. Every day. The girls see it." They sat in comfortable silence, watching through the windows as three identical heads bobbed and giggled at the movie. "Thank you," Jasmine said finally, "for not fighting me, for not making this a battle. Thank you for letting me stay in her life," James replied. "You could have taken her and never looked back. And break her heart? And yours? And Maya and Mia's?" Jasmine shook her head. "That would make me just as bad as the people who stole her." Inside, Lily turned and waved at them through the glass. Maya and Mia waved too. 3 identical smiles, 3 identical waves. "We're doing okay," James said softly. "Against all odds, we're actually doing okay." The first real crisis came 6 months into their arrangement. Lily's kindergarten was having a bring your parent to school day, and she'd been excited for weeks. But 3 days before the event, she came home to Jasmine's townhouse in tears. "Baby, what's wrong?" Jasmine scooped her up, her heart clenching at the sight of those tears. "The other kids say I'm weird," Lily sobbed. "They say I have too many people. They say families aren't supposed to be like ours." Maya and Mia crowded close, their faces mirroring their sister's distress. "Someone said our family is broken," Mia added quietly. Jasmine's mama bear instincts roared to life, but she forced herself to stay calm. "Let me call James, okay? We'll figure this out together." 20 minutes later, James arrived, still in his suit from work, his face tight with worry. They sat with all 3 girls in the living room, trying to find words to explain something they were still figuring out themselves. "Our family isn't broken," James said firmly. "It's just different." "But Emma said families are supposed to be a mommy and a daddy and kids," Lily insisted. "We have a mommy and a daddy, but they don't live together, and Maya and Mia call you James, not daddy, and it's all mixed up." Jasmine and James exchanged helpless looks. "Do you girls feel loved?" Jasmine asked finally. 3 heads nodded. "Do you feel safe?" More nods. "Do you have people who would do anything to protect you and make you happy?" "Yes," Maya said. "We have you, Mama. And we have James." "And Lily has both of you," Mia added. "Then that's what makes a family," James said. "Not who lives where or what we call each other, but love. And we have so much love in this family that we had to split it between 2 houses just to fit it all in." Lily giggled through her tears. "That's silly." "Maybe," Jasmine agreed, pulling all 3 girls close. "But it's true. Our family might look different than Emma's family, but that doesn't make it wrong. It just makes it ours." "I still don't know what to say when people ask," Lily said in a small voice. James thought for a moment. "How about this? You tell them you're very lucky because you have 2 homes and twice as many people who love you. And if they don't understand, that's okay. Not everyone has to understand. Can you both come to school?" Mia asked suddenly. "For Parent Day? All 3 of us want both of you there." Jasmine's breath caught. She looked at James, saw her own uncertainty reflected in his eyes. "We'd love to," they said together. Parent Day was awkward. The other parents stared. A few whispered. One mother actually asked if they were in some kind of arrangement, her tone making clear what she implied. "We're co-parenting," James said smoothly, his arm around Lily. "It's a long story." But the girls didn't notice the stares. They proudly showed James and Jasmine their classroom, their artwork, their favorite books. They introduced their parents to their friends without any of the self-consciousness the adults felt. "This is my mom, Jasmine, and my dad, James," Lily said simply, "and these are my sisters, Maya and Mia." Later, in the school parking lot, James leaned against his car and laughed. "What's funny?" Jasmine asked, loading the girls into her vehicle. "I just realized we're probably going to be the subject of PTA gossip for the next year." "Just a year? I'm thinking will be legendary." They grinned at each other, and Jasmine felt something shift. They weren't just co-parents anymore. They were friends. Real friends who could laugh at the absurdity of their situation and lean on each other when it got hard. As the months passed, the challenges kept coming. James's mother visited from Boston and made thinly veiled comments about unusual arrangements until James firmly told her to support him or leave. Jasmine's ex-husband Marcus showed up drunk one night, demanding to see his daughters, and James had to physically stand between him and the girls while Jasmine called the police. "I could have handled that," Jasmine said after Marcus was escorted away. "I know you could have," James replied, "but you don't have to handle everything alone anymore." They navigated jealousies, too. Lily came home from James's with an expensive new bike, and Maya asked why she didn't have one. James showed up the next day with 2 more bikes, and Jasmine had to explain to him that he couldn't just solve every problem with money. "I wasn't trying to buy them," James protested. "I just wanted them to be equal." "They are equal," Jasmine said gently, "in love and importance. But they're not going to have equal things, James. That's life. What matters is that they know they're all valued the same. James had to learn that Jasmine's rules mattered just as much as his, even when he disagreed. And Jasmine had to learn to accept help, to let James use his resources to make their lives easier without feeling like she was failing. They attended therapy together, at first for the girls, then for themselves. Dr. Morrison helped them navigate the complicated emotions, the boundary issues, the fears that one of them was somehow doing it wrong. "You're both doing it right," Dr. Morrison said during one session. "You're putting the girls first. Everything else is just logistics." But the logistics were hard. Juggling schedules, managing different parenting styles, dealing with the outside world's judgment. Some days, Jasmine wondered if they'd made a huge mistake. Then she'd see the girls together, and she'd know they'd made the only choice they could. The turning point came on the girls' 6th birthday. They'd planned a joint party, both families working together to organize games and cake and decorations. Jasmine had stayed up until 2 a.m. making 3 identical princess cakes because the girls had each one of their own. James had rented a bounce house and hired a face painter and probably gone overboard, but Jasmine was learning to let him express love his way. The party was chaos in the best way. 20 screaming children. Presents everywhere, sugar-induced mayhem. James ended up with frosting in his hair. Jasmine's dress got soaked in the water balloon fight. They were exhausted and overwhelmed and happy. As the sun set and the last guest left, James and Jasmine collapsed on the townhouse lawn, while the girls played in the fading light. "We survived," Jasmine said, laughing. "Barely." James wiped frosting off his temple. "I think I'm getting too old for this." "You're only 38. 38 going on 80 after today." They watched the triplets chase fireflies, their giggles carrying on the warm spring air. Maya caught one and gently showed it to her sisters before releasing it. They were completely in sync, moving around each other with the easy familiarity of children who'd never been apart. "I can't imagine them any other way now," James said quietly. "Can't imagine Lily without her sisters. Can't imagine our lives before that concert." "Me neither," Jasmine admitted, "even though this is the hardest thing I've ever done. Harder than raising twins alone. Different hard. Back then, I was just trying to survive. Now I'm trying to build something that's never been built before." She turned to look at him. "We're trying to build it." James met her eyes, and something passed between them. Understanding, respect, partnership. "I need to tell you something," he said slowly. "My company's been approached about a merger. It would mean relocating to Seattle for at least 2 years. Jasmine's heart dropped. "Seattle?" "I told them no, because of Lily, because of this arrangement we've built." He paused. "But it's a massive opportunity, career-defining. You should take it," Jasmine said, even though the words hurt. "How? We can't maintain this across the country. And I can't." His voice cracked. "I can't leave Lily. I can't leave any of them." Jasmine was quiet for a long moment, her mind racing through possibilities and impossibilities. "What if we came with you?" she said finally. James stared at her. "What?" "What if we all moved to Seattle? You and me and the girls." Jasmine's words came faster now, the idea taking shape. "We could find a duplex there, or 2 places close together. The girls could start fresh in a new school where nobody knows our story and nobody judges our weird family. I could transfer my job or find a new one. We could keep doing this together. You'd uproot your whole life? For me, not for you," Jasmine corrected. "For them, for the girls, for this family we've built." She gestured at the triplets, now sprawled on the grass looking at stars. "A year ago, I would have said no. Would have thought you were trying to take control or separate me from my support system. But now I trust you. We're a team, James. An unconventional, weird, sometimes dysfunctional team, but a team, and teams stick together." James's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "You mean that?" "I mean that. Besides," Jasmine added with a small smile, "I've always wanted to see Seattle." They told the girls the next morning over birthday pancakes. Lily squealed with excitement. Maya and Mia were nervous but curious. They spent weeks researching Seattle together, looking at schools and parks and all the places they'd explore. The move happened in August. James bought a duplex with shared backyard overlooking Puget Sound. Jasmine's unit had 3 bedrooms and a small home office. James's had the same layout, with a door connecting the two through a mudroom they shared. "We're really doing this," Jasmine said as they unpacked boxes, watching the girls run between the 2 spaces. "We really are," James agreed. "How do you feel?" "Terrified. Excited. Hopeful." She laughed. "Like we're building something important." "We are. We're building a family." The first year in Seattle was an adjustment. New schools, new friends, new routines. But the girls thrived. They joined soccer together and took art classes and made friends who only knew them as the triplet sisters with the unusual living situation. James excelled in his new role, though he made sure to be home for dinners and bedtimes more often than he had before. Jasmine found work at a nonprofit she loved, helping other single mothers navigate the system. And somehow, impossibly, their strange family worked. They celebrated holidays together, hosted dinner parties where James cooked and Jasmine made dessert, and the girls set the table. They argued about screen time and homework, and whether the girls were old enough for sleepovers at friends' houses. They became a family. Not the family either of them had planned. Not the family anyone would have predicted. But there's an perfect because of it. On a rainy Seattle evening 2 years after move, James knocked on the door between their units. Jasmine opened it to find him standing there with a bottle of wine and a strange expression. "What's wrong?" she asked immediately. "Nothing's wrong. Can we talk?" They sat in her living room while the girls had a movie night in his space, their laughter filtering through the walls. "The girls asked me something today," James said slowly. "They wanted to know when you and I were going to get married." Jasmine nearly choked on her wine. "What?" "I told them we're not like that. That we're friends and co-parents, but not together." And Lily said, "But you love each other, right? And you live together. That's what married people do." "Oh, God," Jasmine said, covering her face. I know. I explained it's more complicated than that. But it got me thinking." James set down his glass. "We do love each other. Maybe not romantically, but we love each other. We trust each other. We build a life together. We're raising 3 daughters together. We make decisions together. We support each other." "James, what are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe the girls are onto something." He held up his hands quickly. "Not romantic marriage. But what if we made this official somehow? A domestic partnership, or something legal that recognizes what we built, for the girls' sake, for legal protection, for our family." Jasmine finished softly. "Yeah, for our family." Jasmine thought about the man who'd walked into her life 2 years ago, the grieving widower who'd loved her daughter when he thought she was alone, and who'd loved her even more when he learned the truth, the man who'd turned his life upside down to do right by 3 little girls, the friend who'd taught her that family could look however you needed it to look. "Okay," she said. Okay, let's make it official. Let's show the world that family isn't about romance or tradition. It's about love and commitment and showing up for each other every single day." James's smile was brighter than she'd seen in years. "The girls are going to lose their minds." "They really are," they told the triplets the next morning. The reaction was exactly what they predicted. Shrieking, jumping, demands for a party. "Does this mean we're officially all one family now?" Maya asked. "We've always been one family," Jasmine said, pulling all 3 girls close. James joined them, his long arms wrapping around all 4 of them. "But now everyone else will know it too," James added. They made it official in a simple ceremony at the courthouse, with just the girls present. Lily, Maya, and Mia wore matching purple dresses and stood between James and Jasmine, holding hands. "This is weird," the judge said, looking at their partnership papers. "But it's also the most beautiful thing I've seen in this courtroom in 30 years. That night, they had a celebration dinner, just the 5 of them. James cooked, Jasmine made her famous chocolate cake, and the girls helped set the table with flowers they'd picked. "I want to make a toast," Lily said, standing on her chair. Maya and Mia climbed onto their chairs, too. We're really lucky, Lily continued, her voice serious. Most kids only have one home and one family. We get two homes and two parents and each other. And that's because everyone chose love instead of fighting, Maya added. We're the luckiest sisters in the whole world, Mia finished. Jasmine looked at James across the table, her eyes brimming with tears. He reached across and took her hand. To family, he said. To family, Jasmine echoed. However it looks, however it happens. To us, the girls chorused. And in that moment, surrounded by the family she lost and found and built from impossible pieces, Jasmine knew that all found exactly what they needed. Not the family anyone had planned for, but the family they were always meant to be, the family they'd chosen.